Hello everyone, welcome to my English class. Today I will explain a chapter from the book Hornbill of Standard 11th, the Browning version, written by Terence Rattigan. In this story we come to know about that there are two main characters and the conversation between the two. One is a teacher and the second one is a student. Student name is Taplu and the teacher name is Mr. Frank. So what was the conversation and what was the topics? So we will see in this chapter. So let's start this chapter. Here is the introduction for you of this chapter. This chapter is a short extract from the play The Browning version written by Terence Rattigan. This chapter is a short part of the Browning version, which was a play written by Terence Rattigan. It is a one-act play set in a school. There are three characters in the play: Taplow, Frank, and Mr. Crocker Harris. The third name is also here, Mr. Crocker Harris. Taplow is 16 years old student. Frank is a young teacher, and Mr. Crocker Harris is a middle-aged schoolmaster. Introduction of the characters are given here already. Taplow has arrived in the school to do extra work for Mr. Crocker Harris. Taplow he meets Frank and they both engage in a conversation while Taplow waits for Mr. Harris. Later enters Millie, the wife of Mr. Crocker Harris, who talks to Taplow. Here is a summary. I hope you understand the introduction. How many characters are there? There are three main characters: Taplow, a student; Frank, a young teacher; and Mr. Crocker Harris, a middle-aged schoolmaster. The Browning version summary. The scene is set in a school where Taplow arrives to do extra work on last day for Mr. Crocker Harris, as he missed a day before. He finds Frank, a science teacher, in the school. Frank asked him his name and the reason he is there that day. Taplow studies in the lower 5th standard and is about to get his result from his teacher, Mr. Harris. Mr. Crocker Harris usually reveals the result on the last day of school, and unlike every other teacher, he follows the rules and regulations strictly. He is a man of rules and regulation. Who is a man of rules and regulation? Mr. Crocker Harris. They both started having a conversation where Frank asked him several questions. We don't see Mr. Crocker Harris in the whole chapter, but we get to know a lot about him. Taplow wants to take science as a remove because he finds the subject extremely interesting. Frank, on the other hand, doesn't like what he teaches in the school. Mr. Crocker Harris is hardly human as he never shrivels up. He told Taplow that he will get what he deserves, nothing less, nothing more, and this makes him tensed. Taplow further imitates Mr. Crocker Harris twice in front of Frank. Frank admits that he envies Mr. Crocker Harris because of this effect he has on them. Taplow told him that he never shows his emotions like other teachers and never beats them up like other masters. He is not a sadist. As they were deeply engaged in a conversation, Millie enters and comes with a shopping bag. She asked Taplow to go out and come back in a quarter of an hour as Mr. Crocker Harris will be late. If her husband arrives earlier, she will take the blame. She further gives him a prescription and instructs him to purchase medicines for her because from the chemist. Taplow follows and goes away to do the job. So this is the summary of that chapter where Taplow and Frank were busy in a conversation when Millie, the wife of Mr. Crocker Harris, came and interrupted between the two. So here is the explanation. I hope you understand the summary of this chapter. We already read the extract. So we start the chapter. Frank, the conversation between the two. So firstly, Frank said, Frank, do I know you? Here, Frank, who is a young teacher, asked one of the students of the school, Taplow. Taplow, no sir. When Frank asked Taplow if he know him, Taplow replied negatively. Frank, what's your name? Taplow, Taplow. Then Frank asked what his name was, and Taplow replied, Taplow. Frank, Taplow, no, I don't. You are not a scientist, I gather. Here Frank said that Taplow, and he didn't know any Taplow, and he knows that he's not a scientist, he's not a student of science subject as he knew. Taplow, no sir, I am still in the lower fifth. I can't specialize until next term, that is to say, if I have got my remove, all right. Here Taplow said that he was not a science student because he was in 5th standard. After taking the result, he will get get admission in the science. Then Frank, don't you know if you have got your remove? Then Frank asked, if he did not know, what was the result? Taplow. Then Taplow replied, no sir, Mr. Crocker Harris doesn't tell us the result like the other master. Here he said that Mr. Crocker Harris, who is the class teacher of Taplow, did not tell them the result like the other masters. Extract, a short extract from writing, movie or music. Letter denoting the second mentioned person of the two people. Remove, a division in British school. These are the word meanings for you. Extract, letter and remove. And here is the explanation of this chapter. The scene is a short extract from the play The Browning Version. Taplow is a boy aged 16 who arrived at the school to do extra work for Mr. Crocker Harris, his teacher. He meets another teacher, Frank, and engages in a conversation with him while waiting for Mr. Crocker Harris. Frank is another teacher in that school who is young in age. Mr. Crocker Harris is middle-aged. Frank saw Taplow and asked his name and in which class he studies. Taplow answers him and tells him that he studies in the lower 5th standard and he cannot specialize until he gets his division removed. Frank asked him whether he got the remove or not, and Taplow replied that his master, Mr. Crocker Harris, doesn't reveal the information like other masters. Next, Frank, why not? Taplow, well, you know what he is like, sir. Frank, I believe there is a rule that form results should only be announced by the headmaster on the last day of term. Taplow, yes, but who else pays attention to it, Mr. Crocker Harris? Frank, I don't, I admit, but that's no criterion. So you have got to wait until tomorrow to know your fate, have you? Taplow, yes, sir. So here are word meanings. Criterion means a standard by which something is judged. And the explanation is that Frank asked me if Mr. Crocker Harris doesn't reveal the remove earlier like other masters. Tableau tells him that he already knows how Mr. Harris is. Frank supposes that there is a rule that the form result should be revealed on the last day of the term. Tableau agrees and told him that Mr. Crocker Harris follows it very seriously. Frank shares that he doesn't follow it, but still, Tableau should wait until tomorrow to know his result, to which he agrees. Next one is Frank. Supposing the answer is favorable, what then? Tableau. Oh, science, sir, of course. Frank sadly. Yes, we get all the slackers. Tableau protestingly. I'm extremely interested in science, sir. Frank, are you? I am not. Not at least in the science I have to teach. Tableau. Well, anyway, so it's a good deal more exciting than this musk, indicating this book. Frank. What is this muck? Tableau. Aeschylus, sir. The Eggmanon. Frank. And your considered view is that the Eggmanon is muck? Tableau. Well, no, sir. I don't think the play is muck exactly. I suppose, in a way, it is rather a good plot. Really, a wife murdering her husband and all that. I only meant the way it is taught to us. Just a lot of Greek words strung together and 50 lines if you get them wrong. Slackers means lazy students who are not motivated. And muck means useless, which is of no good or use. Aeschylus, it means he was an ancient Greek tragedian who is referred to as father of tragedy. Aeschylus is known as father of tragedy in ancient Greek. And Agamemnon, he was the king of Mycenae in Greek mythology. He was the king. Strung together means to combine two different things into something useful. And then the explanation. Frank asks Tableau about what remove he is interested to take further, and he replies science. Frank tells him that they have some lazy students in science, to which Tableau clarifies that he is interested in the subject, that is why he wants to take it. Frank tells him that he is not interested in science, which he has to teach in the school. Tableau thinks that the subject that Frank teaches is still a good deal than the book he is currently reading. Upon asking about the book, Tableau tells him about the name of the author and the book. Aeschylus is the author of the book, The Agamemnon. Tableau further shares his view about the Agamemnon. He thinks the plot is good, but the way those Greek words are taught to them combined together is useless. And after that, the conversation. Frank, you sound a little bitter. Tableau. Tableau. I'm rather, sir. Frank. Captain. Oh. Tableau. No, sir. Extra work. Frank. Extra work? On the last day of school? Tableau. Yes, sir. I might be playing golf. You would think he had have enough to do anyway himself, considering he is leaving tomorrow for good. But oh no, I missed a day last week when I was ill. So here I am and book at the weather. So, Frank, bad luck. Still, there is one comfort. You are pretty well certain to get your removed tomorrow for being a good boy in taking extra work. Tableau. Well, I am not no, so sure, sir. That would be true of the ordinary masters, all right. They just would not dare not to give a chap a remove after chap means a boy chap a remove after he's taking extra work. But those sort of rules don't apply to the croc, Mr. Crocker Harris. I asked him yesterday outright if he had given me a remove, and you had know what he said, sir. Captain, meaning to make someone stay in a place, especially in school, as a punishment. And chap means a man who you know and like. And here is the explanation of this conversation. On criticizing the book, Frank tells him that you are sounding a little bitter about Mr. Crocker Harris. Further, Frank asks him if he is staying in school as a punishment, to which Taplow replies that he is in the school on the last day of the term due to extra work. He was ill last week, due to which he was absent for a day, for which he is compensating now by doing extra work. He further says that he feels that Mr. Crocker Harris also has extra work himself because he is leaving tomorrow for good. Harris didn't have any extra work, and yet, with such a good weather, he has to come to school. He also adds that he wanted to play golf at that moment. Frank comforts him by saying that he will get his removed tomorrow due to the extra work he is going doing for Mr. Harris. Taplow is unsure of this and tells him that this might work for other teachers, but Mr. Harris is different. He doesn't give a student a remove for doing extra work. Taplow also asked Mr. Harris about his remove, to which the master gave an astonishing answer. After then, next phase. Frank, know what? Taplow, imitating a very gentle rather throaty voice. My dear Taplow, I have given you exactly what you deserve, no less and certainly no more. Do you know, sir? I think he may have marked me down rather than up for taking extra work. I mean, the man's hardly human. He breaks off quickly. Sorry, sir. Have I gone too far? Frank. Yes, much too far. Taplow. Sorry, sir. I got carried away. Frank. Evidently. He picks up a newspaper and opens it. As Taplow. Taplow. Yes, sir. Frank, what was that Crocker Harris said to you? Just, I repeat it, would you? Taplow, imitating again. My dear Taplow, I have given you exactly what you deserve, no less and certainly no more. Frank, looking severe, not in the least like him. Read your nice Aeschylus and be quiet. Taplow, with dislike. Aeschylus got carried away to become overly excited or to take things too far. imitating copying. Got carried away, meaning to become overly excited or to take things too far, and imitating means copying. And here is the explanation. Frank asks him what Mr. Harris told him upon being asked about his remove. Chaplow imitates Mr. Crocker Harris and told him exactly what his master answered him. Mr. Crocker Harris told him that he will get what he deserves, nothing less and nothing more. Taplow feels that he might have marked him down for taking extra work because he doesn't have human feelings. Then he realizes that he has said too much, therefore, he apologizes to Frank. Frank asked him to repeat what he said just about Mr. Harris, and he starts imitating him again. Frank tells him that his imitation is not close to Mr. Harris's view of saying things, and he told him to read his book. Further, Further, Frank, look, what time did Mr. Crocker Harris tell you to be here? Taplow, 6:30, sir. Frank, well, he is 10 minutes late. Why don't you cut? You could play, you could still play golf before lockup. Taplow, really shocked. Oh no, I couldn't cut. Cut them, Mr. Crocker Harris. I should not think it's over being done in the whole time he has been here. God knows what would happen if I did. He would probably follow me home or something. Frank, I must admit, I envy him the effect he seems to have on you boys in the farm. You all seem scared to death of him. What does he do? Beat you all or something? Taplow. Good Lord, no. He is not a sadist like one or two of the others. Frank. I beg your pardon. Taplow. A sadist, sir, is someone who gets pleasure out of giving pain. Frank. Indeed. But I think you went on to say that some other masters. Here are word meanings. Cut means stop doing something undesirable. Envy means jealousy. And sadist means a person who derives pleasure by giving pain or humiliation to others. Pardon means the action of being forgiven for error or offense, forgiveness. And indeed means truly. And here is the explanation. Frank asks him at what time did Mr. Harris asked him to come to school. Taplow told him 6:30. Frank suggests him to go and play golf for a little while as he would be 10 minutes late. Taplow refuses as he is afraid of what would happen if he shows up in his absence and he might follow him home. Frank tells him that he is a gentle jealous of Mr. Harris because of the effect he has on all the boys in the farm. He asks him if Harris beats students, to which Taplow says that no, he is not someone who derives pain by hurting others. There are one or two other teachers like that. Frank asked him to be more specific, and he explains to him the meaning of sadist. Frank asked him what he was saying about other teachers. And then the conversation continues. Taplow. Well, of course they are, sir. I won't mention names, but you know them as well as I do. Of course, I know most masters think we boys don't understand a thing. But, sir, you are different. You are young, well, comparatively anyway, and you, you are science. You must know what sadism is, Frank, after a pause. Good Lord, what are our schools coming to? Taplow. Anyway, the croc isn't a sadist. That's what I'm saying. He wouldn't be so frightening if he were, because at least it would show he had some feelings. But he hasn't. He is all shriveled up inside like a nut, and he seems to hate people to like him. It is funny that I don't know any other master who doesn't like being liked, Frank. And I don't know any boy who doesn't use that for his own purposes. Taplow. Well, it's natural, sir, but not with the croc. Frank. Mr. Crocker Harris. Taplow. Mr. Crocker Harris. The funny thing is that, in spite of everything, I do rather like him. I can't help it, and sometimes I think he sees it, he sees it, and that seems to shrivel him up even more. Frank, I'm sure you are exaggerating. Here are word meanings for you. Shriveled up means having no feelings. This word is used for Mr. Crocker Harris. Exaggerating represents something as being worse than it really is. Now, the explanation of this part. Taplow explains to him that there are many teachers in the school whose names he will not take, but they are a sadists. They think that the boys don't understand a thing, but Frank is different from them, as he is young and he is from a science background and must know about sadism. Frank, in a surprising tone, exclaims about the condition of schools. Taplow goes on ranting about Mr. Harris. He shares that Mr. Crocker Harris is not a sadist, and yet he has no feelings. He is a type of a person who might hate it when people like him. He further says he doesn't know about any master there who doesn't like being liked. Frank mocks him and says he has not seen any student using this quality for his own purpose. Taplow agrees and calls Mr. Harris crock, again to which Frank corrects him by saying his full name. Taplow corrects himself and admits that he still likes him and he can't help it. Sometimes Mr. Harris sees it and he wrinkles even more, to which Frank replied that he must be exaggerating. Then next, the conversation continues. Taplow, no sir, I'm not. Informed the other day, he made one of his classical jokes. Of course, nobody laughed because Nobody understood it, myself included. Still, I knew he had meant it were as funny, so I laughed. Out of ordinary common politeness and feeling a bit sorry for him for having made a poor joke. Now, I can't remember what the joke was, but suppose I make it. Now you laugh, sir. Frank laughs. Tableau in a gentle, throaty voice. Tableau, you laughed at my little joke. I noticed. I must confess that I am pleased at the advance your Latin has made, since you so readily have understood what the rest of the form did not. Perhaps now you would be good enough to explain it to them, so that they too can share your pleasure. And then the explanation. The door upright is pushed open and Millie Crocker Harris enters. She is a thin woman in her late 30s, rather more smartly dressed than the general run of schoolmasters' wives. She is wearing a cap and carries a shopping basket. She closes the door and then stands by the screen watching Taplo and Frank. It is a few seconds before they notice her. Taplo shares further that one day Mr. Crocker Harris cracked one of his classic jokes too, which no one laughed. He understood that the joke was meant to be funny and laughed anyway because he wanted to be polite and to feel sorry for him making such poor jokes. He doesn't remember what the joke was and asked Frank to suppose he cracked a joke right away and asked him to laugh. He imitated his teacher again and told Frank that what his reaction was when he laughed at his joke. Mr. Crocker Harris asked him to explain the joke to the rest of the form as he was the only one laughing in the class. As he was saying this, the door of the classroom opened and Millie, the wife of Mr. Crocker Harris, entered the class. She was a thin woman who dresses smarter than the rest of the women who are wives of schoolmasters. She was wearing a cap and was carrying a shopping basket. She closed the door as she entered the stood. As she stood, entered and stood next to the screen, watching both of them talking. They noticed her after a few seconds. And after then, Frank, come along, Tableau, moves slowly above the desk. Do not be so selfish as to keep a good joke to yourself. Tell the others. He breaks off suddenly, noticing Millie. Oh Lord! Frank turns quickly and seems infinitely relieved at seeing Millie. Frank, oh, hello, Millie, without expression. Hello. She comes down to the sideboard and puts her basket on it. Taplow moving up to left of Frank, whispering frantically. Do you think she heard? Frank shakes his head comfortingly. Miri takes off her cap and hangs it on the hall stand. I think she did. She was standing there quite a time. Taplow. If she did and she tells him, there goes my move. Frank. Nonsense. He crosses to the fireplace. Infinitely means to great extent, and frantically means desperately. As Frank was joking about telling the joke to others, he saw Millie and stopped talking. He turned around and was relieved by seeing her there and wished her hello. She replied hello without any expression on her face and put her basket on the sideboard. Taplow asked Frank in a desperate tone if she had heard any of their conversation. Frank thought that she did because she was standing there for quite some time. Millie took her cap off and hung it on hall stand. Taplow in a worrying tone says if she did hear them, then he will not get his removed. And Frank tells him not to think too much. Frank crosses the fireplace. Millie takes the basket from the sideboard, moves above the table, and puts the basket on it. Millie to Taplow. Waiting for my husband. Taplow. Moving down left to the table. Yes. Millie. He is at the Burzars and might be there quite a time. If I were you, I would go. Taplow. Doubtfully. He said, most particularly, I was to come. Millie. Well, why don't you run away for a quarter of an hour and come back? She unpacks some things from the basket. Taplow. Supposing he gets here before me. Millie, smiling. I will take the blame. She takes a prescription out of the basket. I tell you what, you can do a job for him. Take this prescription to the chemist and get it made up. Taplow. All right, Mrs. Crocker Harris. He crosses towards the door upright. Millie picks up the basket from the sideboard and puts it on the table. She asks Taplow if he is writing for his husband, to which he replies yes. She tells him he is at the Burzars and it might take some time. If she was in his place, she might have left. Taplow replies that he said he will come. As Millie unpacks the things from the basket, she suggests him to go for a quarter of an hour and then come back to check on him. Before him, then what will happen? Millie assured him that she will take the blame for this and takes out a prescription from the basket. She hands it over to him and asks him to bring medicines for her from the chemist. He agrees and crosses the door upright. Here's the story and its explanation finished. Now we will move to the question answers. Text. The first one is comment on the attitude shown by Taplow towards Crocker Harris. So in this question, we answered that Taplow is a student of Mr. Crocker Harris. Taplow is called for extra work by him on his last day of school because of the day he missed previously. Mr. Crocker Harris is a disciplinarian who works hard and follows the rules seriously. Mr. Crocker Harris is a man of rules. He is not a sadist. and doesn't believe in showing feelings to his students. Tableau likes him anyway and wants him to give his remove Mr. Crocker Harris. Mr. Crocker Harris is not biased as he said he will give Tableau what he deserves, nothing less and nothing more. Mr. Crocker Harris doesn't biased. He does not bias on his students on behalf of their performance. Question number 2. Does Frank seem to encourage Tableau's comment on Crocker Harris? And answer is that Frank surely encourages him to comment on Crocker Harris as he asked him many questions about Mr. Crocker Harris. He also asked him to repeat when he was imitating his teacher. Question number 3. What do you gather about Mr. Crocker Harris from the play? Mr. Crocker Harris is a middle-aged schoolmaster who is a disciplinarian. He is not biased with his students and is a strict person. He follows all the rules and never shrivels up in front of his students. He takes his job seriously as he called Tableau on the last day of school to make up for his missed day previously. Now the next one are from talking about the text. There are questions of talking about the text. Question number 1. Discuss talking about teachers among friends. This question is for you, but I explained to you. Students often discuss teachers among their friends, as all the teachers very well knew about that. Students always discussed their teachers among their friends. They sometimes make fun of them behind their back or gives them a name like Tableau did in the play Croc. As we already knew that you students are always make fun of us. This is not the right thing to do as a student. Must understand that a teacher will never do anything to hurt them. But you guys always know that teachers don't make a bias between you. They want to see them successful, and sometimes being strict is what they have to do at the moment. But we, the teachers, always wanted that you guys successful in your life, and we don't want anything from you. Question number 2. Discuss the manner you adopt when you talk about a teacher to other teachers. And the answer is one must respectfully address any teacher in front of any other teacher, and you should, whatever you think about them, never disrespect them, and you should never disrespect any teacher. Students tend to get very frank in front of their teachers and start saying things they should not have. It can backfire, and this is not a good thing to backbite of a teacher in front of any other teacher. Bad habit. Don't do it. Question number 3. Discuss reading plays is more interesting than studying science. And answer. Yes, reading play is more interesting than studying science. Reading plays makes us more imaginative and interesting to do. It also helps in building the language more, and we can learn so much about humans and their behavior. Science, on the other hand, provides us knowledge and gives us a modern approach. It gives us practical knowledge in laboratories and teaches us many things about our daily lives. So let's working with words. A sadist, a sadist is a person who gets pleasure out of giving pain to others. The meaning of sadist is a person who gets pleasure out of giving pain to others. And here are some words for you. Question number 1. A person who considers it very important that things should be correct or genuine in the use of language or in the arts. What it called? Perfectionist. The word is used for the person is perfectionist. A person who is perfect. Question number 2. A person who believes that war and violence are wrong and will not fight in a war. That kind of person is called a pacifist, who doesn't like war and fight. Question number 3. A person who believes that nothing really exists, he is called a nihilist. A person who believes that nothing really exists is called a nihilist. And the next word is a person who is always hopeful and accepts the best in all things is called a optimist. Next question. A person who follows generally accepted norms of behavior is called a conventionalist. And the last one is a person who believes that material possessions are all that matter in life is called a materialist. I hope you all I hope you understand all the question answers and the working with words. Thank you for watching and listening this video carefully.